we arranged it.
That's fine.
So I think we should start. We are dot on time.
Yeah.
So good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Ronald,
Welcome to this. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes. Good afternoon.
hello Saurabh ji, good
Good
afternoon.
Good afternoon, madam. Good afternoon, everybody.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Saurabh Sanyal, Secretary General, PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Very unique program.
Yes, sir. Now we are starting this program. So good evening.
Hey, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this webinar on online gaming, the next big thing in India, wherein we'll be discussing about the current scenario and the opportunities in online gaming. And as we know that gaming has a universal recreational appeal for people across all ages and across all socioeconomic groups. And recently we have seen that the gaming industry has witnessed a paradigm shift with the evolution of television, with like digital, with online gaming models, which is leading to a surge in the number of online gaming sites over the last few years. And with this, given this high growth potential of the gaming industry in India, there are many foreign entities, many technology providers, they're exploring possibilities to set up operations here. And while operating gaming businesses is easier in some countries of the world where games of chance and games of skills are regulated, the business environment is not as conducive in India since the laws are stringent. So in order to understand the nuts and bolts of this online gaming industry, we have in fact curated this important webinar with the domain experts who are basically the stars in their own fields. And in order to understand the nuts and bolts that how this online gaming industry operates, what are the bright futures of it, what are the hidden opportunities and way forward, this webinar will open the new vistas for all these queries. So without any further ado, I'll request Mr. Pradeep Multani, Vice President of PhD Chamber of Commerce Industry, to kindly start with the opening remarks and give the welcome address on behalf of PhD Chamber of Commerce Industry. Over to Mr. Pradeep Multani.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jatinder. Good evening and welcome to the webinar on online gaming, the next big thing in India, the current scenario and opportunities in online gaming. We have today esteemed and distinguished speakers, Mr. Gaurav Gagar,
Namaskar.
Mr. Ronald, Landis, CEO, All India Gaming Federation, Mr. Karthikeya Rao, CEO, WOW Chess, Mr. A. Ramesh, Country Head, India Unity Technologies, Mr. Sharik Khan, Category Head Gaming, XY Ads, Mr. Vaibhav Gagar, Managing Partner, Gagar and Partners, Solicitors and Advocates, Ms. Priya Hingorani, Senior Advocate, Co-Chairperson, Sports and Youth Affairs Committee of PhD. On behalf of our PhD Chamber family, I am greatly honored and pleased to welcome all the distinguished speakers and delegates to this very important webinar, Online Gaming, the Next Big Thing in India, Current Scenario and Opportunities in Online Gaming. PhD Chamber has been working in sync with the thought process and policies of the Government of India for promoting sports and creating a platform which can lead to the growth of sports industry in India. The increasing use of smartphones and digital technologies in India is leading people to adapt to online gaming as a passion, hobby, time pass, and for some, a serious profession. Just in India, there are about 500 million internet users, which is about 35% of the population. We stand second only to China in this regard. In addition, India is currently ranked amongst the top 5 markets for online gaming globally, and with cheaper smartphones, less than rupees 6,000, and affordable data plans, monthly plans as low as rupees 149, this number will continue to rise up. Home to 1/10 of the world's gamers, the number of Indian gaming companies has now gone from just 25 in 2010 to be 250 as of now. According to the KPMG report, Indian online gaming industry from US dollars 290 million would soon become a US 1 billion industry by adding almost close to US dollars 190 million gamers by the year 2021. With the increasing shift of using domestic products, the consumption of local developers is growing rapidly. Looking at the pace of growth of this massive market, one can see a huge number of emerging businesses entering into the digital gaming market in India. And it doesn't come as a surprise, considering how fast this sector is growing. Be it big or small players, everyone knows the potential it holds and is willing to invest in the online gaming industry. The digital gaming industry has evolved over the years. Some of the key factors that drive the online gaming industry are millennials, internet penetration, frictionless payments, growing developer ecosystem, and entertainment consumption patterns. This consumption further be increased by making the brand elements prominent and innovative by highlighting the unique music, colors, themes, features, etc. Another way of doing this is by making it user-friendly, capturing a game that would keep the eyeballs glued to the game for a longer period. The growth of India's gaming sector will be driven by a number of factors, including the rise of new investor-backed game studios, immersive and local themed titles, as well as more fantasy sports apps. Online gaming will also be pushed by the adoption of augmented reality and virtual reality. At present, the fantasy sports scene in India revolves around cricket. But in 2020, we expect to see the growth of football, kabaddi, hockey, volleyball, baseball, and wrestling too. For Indian gaming startups, COVID-19 lockdown is a boon for business. With odds in hand, people in India are spending a majority of their time mobile games during the lockdown. This has led to a massive surge in user engagement of gaming startups in India. The objective of organizing this webinar on online gaming is to promote online gaming and gaming technologies in India and to discuss about the opportunities in online gaming sector for corporate and specifically for startups. Once again, I thank everyone for their presence here on this important occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for those introductory remarks. And you have very well said about the future of this industry in terms of the expectations that many studies have revealed, and definitely there is a lot of boom in this sector. Now we'll introduce all of our domain experts, since they are all the people who in fact deserves special accolades as they have done fantastic work in their own domain. So without any further ado, I will start the introduction. First, we have Mr. Vaibhav Gagar, who is the moderator of this session, and he is the managing partner of Gagar and Partners, Solicitors and Advocates. At the forefront of policy and strategy for disruptive future technologies, Vaibhav straddles the words of being the managing partner of the law firm G&P, Solicitors and Advocates, with a team of 25 lawyers specializing in gaming, cyber and technology, TMT, intellectual property, data privacy laws, white-collar crimes and antitrust laws on the one hand, and being a serial entrepreneur with investments spanning across the tech space in over a dozen startups, including breakthrough technologies in the gaming, AVR and blockchain verticals. With an experience of close to 2 decades as a lawyer, he has to his credit a number of watershed judgments of various courts, including the Supreme Court of India, and as a dreamer and entrepreneur, he has to his credit being the pioneer of legalizing online poker in India by launching the first online poker website, namely ADA52, which still remains the largest online poker website in the country. He is also the author of the Online Games of the Skill Act 2016, which is the first and only legislation in the country and even globally dealing with the regulating online games of skill for stake. Welcome, Vaibhavji. Welcome to this webinar. Next expert, we have Mr. Gaurav Gagar, Chartered Accountant and ex-founder promoter at ADA52.com. Gaurav is a seasoned Chartered Accountant and investment banker. He specializes in the area of strategy, business planning, financial modeling, valuation and transaction structuring. Gaurav has been involved in several cross-border joint ventures, collaborations, fundraisers and M&As across various industries, including technology, manufacturing, services, entertainments, real estate, etc. He has been incubating several businesses and taken them through the cycle from incorporation to monetization to funding and finally exit. He has special focus and expertise in real money in gaming, having pioneered this space in India. His gaming portfolio includes investment in Ada52.com, now he has exited this, then PokerHigh.com and Quinam, real money quizzing. Gaurav has also incubated CreditHealth.com, a pan-India platform which helps patients get into the right hospital for their hospitalization needs. Currently at 1,500 plus patients per month. He has also founded BioResearch.com, a company into market intelligence in the deep tech sector, including fintech, precision medicine, mobility, defense, and space tech. It has global Fortune 500 companies as their clients. Welcome, sir. Next expert, we have Mr. Ronald Landis. He is the CEO of All India Gaming Federation, which is the apex industry body for transactional online skill gaming in India and has leading Indian and international stakeholders as its members. He is an accomplished leader with expertise spanning the gaming, media entertainment, and sport businesses. Roland has in fact, he has built top-ranked global media brands and successful IPs in the past. Welcome, Mr. Roland. Next speaker, we have Mr. Karthikeya Rao. Karthikeya has been involved in the world of sport since 2003. He has worked in talent management, sponsorship, sales and service, brand opportunities and IP creation, consulting, event execution and operations, and social media marketing. He has also been an anchor reporter with NDTV 24/7. Karthikeya saw an opportunity in the emerging field of gaming and began looking at opportunities. Wow Chess is the first gaming startup that he has launched. Karthikeya did the bachelor's from St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi, and has a master's in sports business from London Metropolitan University. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Next speaker, we have Mr. Anumakonda Ramesh. He is the country manager India, Unity Technologies. Ramesh heads Unity in India subcontinent, focused on game development across mobile, online, PC console, and streaming formats. Ramesh previously served as the CEO of Media and Entertainment Skills Council, which is a part of NSDC. He was also the chief producer at Bharti Softbank, chief gaming officer at Krida Games, digital media specialist at IBM Global Services. And prior to IBM, Ramesh worked on several 3D animated movies and game development projects. Welcome, Ramesh, to this webinar. Last domain expert, we have Mr. Sharik Khan, the category head gaming XY ads. He is marketeer by profession and anchor by interest, a philanthropist by beliefs, an e-shopping consultant by passion, and a dreamer by thoughts. An expert in media planning and buying, affiliate marketing, brand management, product marketing, advertising, and PR. He has worked very closely on poker, rummy, and fantasy games while heading marketing at Ada52 and currently assisting multiple global gaming brands in their acquisition initiatives at XY Ads. Welcome, Mr. Khan. Welcome to this webinar. Now I'll request Mr. Weber Gagat to kindly take over this webinar and please moderate this session with full flow of thoughts. Like as you rightly said, that we need that session to be more interactive rather than having a gyan, because interactive session instills more confidence among all the delegates and it gives a new leash of knowledge. Over to Mr. Weber Gagat, please.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Thank you for the kind introductions. And thank you to the audience as well as all the co-panelists who are over here. I must say at the outset, the team of co-panelists that has been selected here actually ticks every box that is required for a gaming startup. You've got the technology experts, you've got the marketing experts, you've got the fresher startup over here in Mr. Rao, you've got a seasoned entrepreneur who's actually done more than 2 exits in the gaming space in Gaurav. And between Ms. Hingorani and myself, I think we should be able to cover the legalities quite deeply as well. So thank you for this opportunity. Just before I go on to the co-panelists, I think I would like to give a very quick landscape overview of what gaming laws in India are. It's important to understand that gaming itself is divided into various verticals. So one of the verticals, as we all know, is casinos, for instance. And everything that we speak about is online as well as offline. There's a possibility, and the rules and regulations and laws regarding the same also differ. But to put it in a nutshell, casino laws are restricted to state laws, which means that's why you can have Goa, which is being able to provide casinos, while you may not have that in Karnataka. Then you have what are called games of skill. Games of skill ever since 1957 by the Supreme Court in what is a monumental judgment called RMD Chamar Bagwala, and which has been later followed in 1968 and 1996 by the Supreme Court and various high courts, has said that games of skill are exempted from the purview of gambling. Now, this creates the foundation on which the legalities in India started developing for gaming, which is really a decade old. If you really look at it, gaming has launched in a big way in the last decade, and it's still the tip of the iceberg. So games of skill are a special category where actually it is treated as a genuine business venture, which is protected as a fundamental right under the Constitution, under Article 19(1)(g). So it is as legal as is e-commerce, for instance. And there is a lot of myth around, and there's a lot of speculation around about its legalities. A lot of the people, even in the judiciary, do not know the simplicity of this issue. But because the stakes are high, and of course there are a lot of nuances to it. It is not that you can just get up and start a venture thinking it's a game of skill without taking adequate precautions and launch it, because that would be dangerous. There are criminal ramifications which are possible, and then obviously all sorts of acts come in. But today, the legal study in this, we as a firm have been doing it, for instance, for the last 15 years. And now, fortunately, there are 3-4 other firms in the country also who have started specializing, or at least having a wing to be looking into gaming laws. If you get the right legal consult at the beginning itself and walk through that journey, I can tell you that it is as safe as any other business venture in the country. Of course, policies keep changing. Of course, rules and regulations keep happening. But at a fundamental level, we should understand that, because that's extremely important when we are putting in the money. The third vertical within this is sports betting. Now, we've been hearing a lot in the media. We've had retired justices of the Supreme Court. We've had the retired CBI director. We've had the Law Commission of India in its 276th report say that sport betting should be regulated and legalized. The arguments for that are obviously quite clear. You've got a 150,000 crore betting market just on cricket per year in India, which is happening. No one's looking at it. No one is making any taxes from it. No one is looking into the fraud aspect of it. There are no audits or checks and balances. So sport betting is a third vertical. And I would be inviting the co-panelists on all these verticals to give this thing, because there are industry bodies and lawyers who are now working hard towards a policy regulatory change so that we can bring about a solid foundation for sport betting in India as well. And the fourth vertical of this is casual games. So think of Angry Bird, think of little puzzles that you're doing. Anything that we are playing on the video game which does not necessarily have a cash element, does not have a real money gaming element. And from all our co-panelists, we'll be hearing this term often called RMG. It's called real money gaming. So everything that we're going to be talking towards today is going to be RMG oriented. The fifth is, of course, lotteries. Lotteries has its own special status in the Constitution. It belongs to the center. In fact, unlike all the first four verticals, which are state legislations, lotteries become a center, come a state legislation. And that's a whole different paradigm altogether. So when we're going to be talking about gaming today, we're going to be really talking about the first four fundamental issues of verticals. And we would try and do a deep dive into each one of them as we go along. At this juncture, if there are any questions, I'll be very happy to take them, but I believe it may be better, since it's a webinar, to take them towards the end of the conference. So all legal questions would be very happily dealt with over here. May I proceed with the co-panelists in this space? So to begin with, if I could invite Ronald, who's the CEO of All India Gaming Federation. Ronald, where do you see the gaming world? How has it progressed in the last 5 to 7 years, and what do you see the future as?
Thanks, Weber. So in the last 4 years that I've been with the AIGF, and even prior to that, with Z at the gaming side, we've seen it grow essentially while it has been, as you rightly said, over the last decade. I'm talking about the online transactional skill gaming right now. And in the last decade, obviously, there have been the Sikkim license for sports betting and other businesses related to gaming. We have the Nagaland license for skill gaming. But really, the emphasis and focus has come on the sector in the last 2.5 years. And in our 4 years at the AGF, we have seen, a lot of interest from all the stakeholders. So be it the gaming operators who are interested in, running businesses in each of these, and in the transactional real money skill gaming, we've seen the businesses verticals also grow. While we started with the skill-based card games like Rummy and Poker, then the daily fantasy, and now we have the digital skill games or casual games for money, like you rightly said. And now we're looking at equally big opportunity in esports going forward. So those verticals itself have traversed from 1 to 5 now. So that's been a huge opportunity. And likewise, I feel that going forward, we shared some details with EY in the report that they put together for FICCI Frames every year, and of which gaming constitutes a large part. And for the transactional based skill gaming, obviously a lot of data have gone from our side also. So they have indicated that in the last 1 year itself, there's been a 40% increase in time spent. Transaction grew by 50%. So almost we can see that there's been a ARPU growth of 41% over last year.
ARPU would be, Roland, for the benefit of the audience.
The average revenue per
user.
Yeah, and for the transactional games like the card games has grown by 30%. So we've seen overall easily in the realm of between 30 in the excess of 30% growth over last year. So the future now combined with technology developments, there is a huge opportunity as I can see it in for example cloud gaming or AI based gaming and data science. And when all of these come into play, I think definitely we are a underserved industry, and the opportunity to go from what they say as an industry figure of 1 billion in 2021 really can grow exponentially in comparison with probably what US or China or Japan are bigger than us, given the population base, given the fundamentals like Dr. Singh mentioned at the outset, and Mr. Multani also mentioned. So, those fundamentals are already in place, number of internet users, smartphone users. So that 1 billion is a really underserved market. It can really go exponentially, I feel.
Fascinating. So, Gaurav, coming to you, you have done 2 successful exits already in the poker domain, being Adda 52, which was sold to a listed company 3 years back, and Poker Banga. And now you're into your 3rd poker venture. Plus, you have interests in other gaming ventures as well, like Real Money Gaming Quiz. Where do you see the industry currently?
So Vaibhav, the way I see it, if you look at entertainment industry, the consumption is only one way. So you're just consuming. But when you look at gaming, actually it was a 2-way process. You get a dopamine hit, and then you're interacting back, and then you go to the next level and the next level and the next level. Very recently, Satya Nadella no less said that gaming would be bigger than entertainment, movies, sports, everything in time to come. And I think no less than Mukesh Ambani conquered on that. So, we can understand where it's going. And there are really big bets being placed on gaming now with the advent of, 5G technology coming forth. So up until now, I think you had vanilla games like, card games like poker, rummy, etc. But going forward, as Roland also mentioned, you'll have AI, you have AR, virtual reality, augmented reality, all of these things are going to come forth. As we get more clarity around the legality, which you're leading anyways, it's going to be a paradigm shift to what is happening right now. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. So super, super opportunity there.
Karthikeya, if I may request you to shed some light after the distinguished career that you've had in the sports world. You have decided to, and as a reporter with NDTV, you have decided to become the promoter CEO of a chess venture for Real Money Gaming, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the only one globally. I did my research. So how difficult was it to enter this, and what has your experience been?
So firstly, I just want to thank the PHDCCI for this opportunity. It's a terribly exciting time for WoW Chess. I can tell you that at the very outset. We're a supremely young company. We just entered the market last month. We've been planning this for the last year and a half, 2 years. Been a boatload of research. For us, obviously, the industry macros that other eminent panelists, as well as the PHDCCI office bearers alluded to. So all of those are great indicators, setting up top. For me specifically, the whole opportunity of chess is a supremely unique one. I think given the fact that chess is largely an indigenous game, there's an India cultural connect which a poker mayn't have or other disciplines mayn't have. Chess has that. There's a huge playing public in India. So by estimates, the number is somewhere between 50 and 80 million Indians know how to play chess. Yeah. Number three, we all know the penchant that Indians have for wagering and putting, money down or a wager down, so to exacerbate the sport consumption experience that exists across the country. It's not geo-defined to specific parts of the country. That's throughout the country. Number four, of course, the other things about data speeds, internet speeds, mobile phone penetration, and stuff like that. 5G coming on. So the way we see this is that chess is something that we're shocked has not happened till now. And we want to not just be the first movers, but we also want to take the story up so high from a product perspective, from an experience perspective. I mean, our business is called WoW Chess. So if we don't deliver on the WoW, I think we're going to be, found wanting. So the whole idea is to elevate that experience and to set the benchmark in chess. We've got a whole host of very interesting product elements which are planned, which will be out in the next month to 6 weeks. The support until now has been really good. We've got lots of positive feedback. Obviously, like I said, we're very young. We're a few weeks old only out in the market. So we're getting a lot of feedback. We're optimizing. We are in a supremely secure space that we will definitely be the benchmark setters, the go-to guys in chess in the next 12 months. That's our vision, and I know we'll get there.
Thank you. Ramesh, since technology was just spoken, no one better than you to advise. How have you seen the gaming world develop? You saw it when it was still at scratch level. And as Gaurav said, it's still the tip of the iceberg. So from your perspective, where do you see it going?
From a community perspective, gaming has multiple players. It started with traditional games, card games, board games. And today, if you see, games are there across online, offline, and keeping the context of Unity as a tool. It's a tool which can help you create content. And this content can be created for online and offline consumption. And we do have broadly our gaming distributed into casual gaming, hardcore gaming, and what we call as real money gaming. In the casual gaming, you see all the games like Pokemon Go, all your casual games which come on website are done, which are cross-platform, where you can publish onto web, PC, platform, as an app, as an embedded system, can be pushed onto DTH or any other format. And especially coming back to real money gaming, we as a technology company help not only to build games for online and offline consumption, from a US laws or international laws, if you're doing a casino game, you need to go and do your full random number generating check, which means you need to have access to source code. So we as a technology company provides various forms of tools and technologies, including access to source code to support these industries. More interestingly, when we are looking at the key of of the success of any gaming company is the stickiness factor. And the stickiness factor comes from the aspects of flexibility of giving a game cross-platform, because you would always love to have your game, the same game played from your phone, PC, from any of your gadgets, from your tablet, and then have that connective social experience makes it more interesting and more deployable. Today, we are initially founded, the company is founded in Copenhagen, and now we have moved our headquarters to San Francisco. And at any point of time, any technology related questions, I'm more than happy to support. And we have a very strong presence in India. And the good part with PhD Chambers, I would like to bring to the notice of the co-speakers and the audience is, we were hitting by unprecedented growth. When I say unprecedented growth, a year back where we were valued around $3 billion US, we raised $430 million. Again, after a year, we were double. We were much more larger now with a $6 billion valuation. And these are all public numbers, what I'm showing at the audience to say that the opportunity is real. You need to have the right tools. You need to position your legalities like how Vaibhav has told in the right tone. And one of the interesting aspects is in a game of chance or a luck, you need to be really, really vigilant from a legal perspective.
Yes.
And if it is a game of skill, and if you say rummy or poker or chess is a game of skill, you are in much more safe harbor. But there is one more other interesting conversation, and which I'm leaving as a concluding thought is, how about I just be an online service provider where people pay rent to the table and I have nothing attached, where people can come and do their transaction on the table and leave a chip of money as a table rent. And then that can go to a go thing, and I leave it to my for giving
Ramesh, on that point, we know the ramifications and how big that particular site has become, which adopted that model actually.
Unbelievably big.
Unbelievably big.
And today, if you look at Cayman Islands, if you're looking at a ship in Goa is legitimate to do casino poker than the casino on the shore. So
yes,
these are all legal things. But what I'm saying from a technology perspective, we are very strong in supporting, and we measure our success in making sure that anyone who has an aspiration to do a game or build a game, we are there to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, fortunately, the legal complexities help us lawyers survive. Also, Sharik, if I could call you in, you've been in the advertising space, and I know for a fact that the advertising space used to be extremely difficult a few years back, with even Google and Facebook not allowing advertising for real money gaming. How is the current environment and ecosystem? Sharik?
Sharik, you're on mute.
Sharik, you're on mute.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So to begin with, it was very difficult to advertise on Google and Facebook, but then we had to find our ways. And currently, the situation is still grim. The only difference is that with certain surrogate methods, you are able to advertise on Google, that too within limits. So yes, you can do advertise, but then the limits will be there, and specific to Google, it prohibits the category while Facebook restricts it. So with Facebook, if you provide the licensing, you will be allowed to run to a certain extent, but with Google, it's a no-no. So that's why most of the players in this category have to resort to alternate ways of advertising. And that's how your display advertising and your native advertising and affiliate marketing comes into picture. And that really helps the industry go forward.
I in fact love for you during the course of this conversation to elaborate more on those models and the affiliate model as well, because that actually is all encompassing and creates a lot of opportunity for people who want to test waters as well. Before I move on to the next question, I just got reminded of when the gaming world started in 2010, when Poker Adda 52 was launched. I remember that between Gaurav and me, we had to convince each bank individually, one by one, to provide a payment gateway, because otherwise the site was ready, everything was up and ready to go, funds had been raised, but no one was giving a payment gateway. And it took us 6 months that time to just get that, overcome that regulatory mechanism. Now, of course, thanks to the community and thanks to our advance, it happens almost overnight or within a week as long as your basic compliances are in place. But that was a level of pushback in those days. But coming on to the next one, Gaurav, do you believe that the gaming environment is conducive for startups now, or has it become, you've got some big boys out there, you've got MPL, you've got Nazara, you've got Delta Corp, all of them are touching almost $1 billion valuation each. Do you think, and of course, Dream 11, the biggest of them all, which in the last 3 years has gone from zero to, I think, a $2.4 billion valuation. Do you think the market's already overcrowded, or is there space?
Not at all. I think, the market is just starting out. So there is space for big boys. There's space for small boys. There are players who are going to be making games. There are going to be players who are going to be, putting up platforms. They're going to be part of that. They're going to be publishing. Opportunities are abound. Because see, if you equate it to the movie industry, there are a variety of movies which are going to be there. There's going to be Telugu, Bengali, Hindi, English. There's going to be small documentary. And equally in gaming, what is going to be of appeal to you may not be, for me. So esport is a different genre. Card games are a different genre. Then you have Candy Crush and the likes of those. So there are so many things and so many nuances which are going to be coming about. We are online, but the, culture we are going to be creating, each company is going to be creating for the games, that is going to be very particular and localized. So there is huge opportunity right now for startups as well as for big corporations.
And Roland, Roland, Gaurav and I were in fact on panel in London last year on the India story for sports betting. And we'd had a wager to say publicly, and I said sports betting is going to get regulated in 2 years. And Roland was skeptical about it, and he seems to be coming right in that little wager. But it's a game of skill. Wagering is a game of skill when its prediction is based on analysis. You could win or lose. But Roland, you were there at the ICE conference this year as well. What is the reaction? What is the perception of the Indian gaming story overseas? Roland, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Vaibhav. So basically, when we started the AIGF 4 years back, and that time when we were at the ICE, everyone was looking, and also during the 2010 Sikkim license, and everyone was looking at the larger sport betting opportunity, and really when things did not move in that direction till the time that the law commission started working on the mandate on the recommendations, and even post that Dr. Tharoor introduced a private bill, but really things didn't move speedily enough. But what has happened in the parallelly is that the skill, the RMG skill gaming opportunity, has really exploded. So that itself has given many international investors the opportunity to already have a part in the ecosystem that is growing, rather than looking at waiting for the big opportunity. There's enormous scope in the RMG side already, and we've seen many deals materializing, and also those which are work in progress. And I'm sure going forward with esports and all of this on the horizon, there will be many such deals happening. And so the the interest from the Western world is enormous for India. The numbers, the fundamentals, all there. And like Gaurav said, I too personally believe that the access is going to increase further with the deals that we've been reading about. The probable Reliance Jio partnership and the Google opportunity into gaming. So all of these will give many more access touch points to consumers, and also Gaurav touched upon the regional play, which I personally believe in. Out of these 800 odd internet users, they are almost 800 million 500 million are from the regionals. So that regional opportunity in gaming is enormous, apart from what we already discussed in the first part.
And Karthikeya, coming to you, how difficult was it? I mean, India with its startup story and the push for young entrepreneurs, etc. Was the environment conducive for you to be able to launch your business, or it really was you, friends, family taking it off? How difficult or easy was it to launch your business?
So it wasn't terribly difficult from a fundraise perspective. I think that once you had at least we had a clear plan of what we wanted to do. The reasons were strong, the indicators were strong, and then the plan was strong. So I'm personally, for us at WowChess, that was not a concern. Obviously, as we launch and as we go forward, we will be, looking at the market again to raise further funds as we keep hitting business milestones. But I think, from the fact that I've done a boatload of work already in sports marketing in the offline space, I think that the clarity of vision and the clarity of opportunity and the novelty of it is what comes forth. I just think that chess is so uniquely positioned at this current point, and there's so much that can move. I mean, the panelists were talking about. I'm talking about a simple thing like talent management. I mean, we have Vishwanathan Anand. India has 65 chess grandmasters. Okay, Vishwanathan Anand was the first in 1986. I'm just saying, barring him, we don't have a chess superstar. Now, I put that down to marketing fatigue or marketing inertia or marketing inability to think creatively. There are just so many just sellable talent out there. And the time is now when we have things like TikTok taking off. We have, obviously content has been going off the charts for the last few years. We've got subject matter experts. I read an article yesterday, for example, of a private equity officer who now runs a really successful YouTube channel for Sudoku. Okay, and he's got the two guys, and they've got 30 million viewers. I mean, what are we talking about? From an opportunity perspective, there's anything can go at any time. And isn't that the positive framework that any investor would look at to say, you don't have to be a youngster. You don't have to be having this sort of burning, unique idea. Yes, there has to be a need that you fulfill. But even if you're sitting at the age of 55 and you're this amazing Sudoku player, you can build an online business. It's fabulous as an opportunity. It's fabulous. Now, juxtapose that with the current COVID scenario and a lot of people getting laid off or furloughed or their futures being uncertain. If you have that ability to have an online manifestation of an interest, and if you can make it into a business, isn't that awesome, right? So for me, we spoke about fantasy a short while ago. I think all of it still has, Gaurav spoke a short while ago, but it's just scratching the surface now. I think things like content, original content, user-generated content, all of these kind of things, unique ideas, new ideas, they're going to keep evolving. As long as the funnel exists, as long as the context exists, consumption is there. We just have to just keep coming with new ideas, novel ideas, and to garner sort of imagination of people out there. Anything is possible, and that's amazing.
So I remember, I mean, it almost reminds me of a situation. Are you trying to create the next Slumdog Millionaire of chess?
So that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point, right? So for us in chess, the idea is, while there may be 65 Indian grandmasters and some 200 or 300 international masters, we as a business are looking at that 50, 60 million denominator to say, let everyone come and play. We're inclusive. We are, we don't want chess to be perceived as a brainy, nerdy discipline. It's a fun discipline. It can be a fun discipline. And that's eventually what you will see in our productization as we keep coming out with it, is that we want kids play chess, elders play chess, middle-age. So the beauty of chess is everything is on at any given point in time, right? We just have to create those hooks. We have to create those opportunities. We have to create and sort of own the imagination of people. We want them. So what Ludo was able to do in the last 2 or 3 years, we want that to happen to chess at some level, right? We want it to be open, democratic, reimagined, and hopefully new and a little sexy. So it kind of gets the imagination of families, of men, women, elder, younger, everybody.
Nice. Ramesh, technology is one of the, and we've seen this across board with a number of the startups in the gaming world. At first blush, it looks very simple. Oh, it's just a card game. And then when they get in the intricacies, they realize how complicated and complex that entire thing is. I believe, for instance, in poker, it's almost 1 million lines of code that go into making a game of poker, right? What is the way, what is the ideal way or easiest way for someone who may not have a very deep pocket, to get into the gaming world, what kind of collaborations, technology collaborations, etc., exist?
You're right. We to start anything as a game.
So
You
you're
need
not
not
very clear.
to start any game development. You need not reinvent the wheel.
Right.
And today, if you're looking at tools, there is something called a game engine. An engine is reusable code, runs in millions of lines, where you can pick up a template and quickly start building the game. The rubber hit the road day one. And the good part of using an engine is your integration elements, your multi-platform elements, everything is taken care of. So from a game to stand uniquely out, like how Karthikeya Rao was saying, yes, you take a game, you add social aspect to it. You add things beyond the gameplay and the game logic and the core loop of the game. You make things such a way that it becomes a community effect. It has a competitive spirit. It has a fair play aspect, and then it gives that edge to make the retention of the user, which is easy to play, hard to master, and it is fun every time whether you lose or win. So if you look at
Very
games
important.
in the casual space, like Angry Birds, or if you look at any of the hardcore games, for example, PUBG, the social engagement is the key. And from a technology aspect, choosing a platform which can support cross-platform is going to give you a better return on investment because you make your content available across all platforms. And then you need to look at your game being not just being the game, but you have all the aspects of easy to play, hard to master, fun every time, whether you lose or win. And then tying up with a very good social component, which will make sure that your retention is being there. And more interestingly, when I have a company which leaks into ad-based game revenue, every time you fail, instead of doing an in-app purchase, if you reward them with a video ad, there is nothing that is more jingle bells to any ad network, which says that I have engagement on my ad and you make more ROI on those investments. Where a very conservative gamer need not spend for an in-app purchase, but can rely on getting the next Sudoku puzzle or the next challenge on the quest game or a chess game. Instead of a microtransaction, they can look at a video ad, and a completion of a video ad can give a better ROI because there is engagement on that ad. So platform choice with cross-platform, in-game app support, ad engine support, ad mediating support is definitely a strong recommendation.
So actually, what Sharik had said earlier, that it was a tough marketing world otherwise, but the solution that you just proposed here, I mean, it might be surrogate to an extent, but I think I can't see a YouTube or any of the gaming, or even a Google or a Facebook being able to ban such kind of advertising where it's inbuilt into a video, right? You have a 3-minute clip and you've got the video going viral in that respect, and the advertising that comes out through that. Is that a very popular model now?
Yeah, the model is getting evolved, and today when you're looking at the CPC and CPM for buying new users is really going through the roof, and is really getting expensive because there are a lot of content creators, and ability to get your user base is the biggest challenge. Ability to reward in-game transaction for an action called by the game publisher, because now there is again one more interesting aspect. What we need to do is there's a game developer who develops the game, and there is a company which is a developer come publisher. For example, Nazara develops game and publishes game, but there are some companies which only develop games and they just give it to a publisher who in turn monetize the game and give it. There's a third format of engagement. If you're looking at companies like Spartan Poker in Bombay, they take the game from an international developer and they operate the game in Indian context.
Yes.
So the combination of whether build versus buy to lease or rent, you have every package of things to do it, and especially from a legal standpoint of view, from a monetizing point of view of an ad network, and a platform choice. is to keep all your doors and windows open should be a no-brainer approach for attempting this online.
Sharik, according to you, what is the cost of acquisition per player? Say if you look at poker and if you look at rummy, the typical card games where it all started, what would be the typical cost of acquisition per player, and therefore meaning what should be the marketing budget for a company when it's looking at launching?
Sure. So it varies from game to game. So for poker, rummy, and fantasy, if I talk about, these three are different. Uh, Definitely, since rummy is predominantly a higher game of skill, people tend to spend more time on it, and that's how recovery rates are better for companies. And that's how cost per acquisition for rummy goes slightly higher to around 8,000 rupees. For poker, it is slightly lesser because it's a game which requires lesser duration to play. A game can be completed within 5 minutes. So for poker, and the average lifetime is also lower for poker, around 6 months, while it is around 8 to 12 months for rummy. So for poker, it becomes somewhere around 4 to 5,000 rupees. Fantasy, because it's spread across India. I mean, who doesn't love sports, like specifically cricket? So for fantasy, the cost per acquisition is slightly lower at around 1,500 rupees, and also it varies from channel to channel. Like, for example, if you talk about Google, the cost per acquisition might be slightly higher, but your LTV would be highest among all other channels. Similarly, followed by Facebook, the cost per acquisition might be slightly lower, but your LTV would be lower. And then followed by other channels. And like you were mentioning about like these newbies influencers who are now creating videos and attracting audiences. I tried out a couple of campaigns, and they particularly worked well. Specifically, if you choose the influencer right, and choosing a brand ambassador also makes a lot of difference. We got an amazing response at Adda 52 when we appointed Chris Gale as our brand ambassador. Just this small thing that we did doubled our CTRs for all our ads that we were running.
CTR would mean?
Yeah, click-through rate. So out of how many people saw your ad, how many people clicked on it?
Okay. Roland, what are the, I know that AIGF is coming up with a self-regulatory model. What does that mean? And one of the biggest fear factors across the world, or across the public as well as the judiciary and authorities, is what are the fraud check mechanisms which are there? How do we as a community ensure that these are not fly-by-night operators, people don't lose their money? What's the thought behind that, Karan?
Yeah, thanks, Vaibhav. So initially, when the AIGF started in 2016, at that point in time, maybe there were some, operators who were these fly-by-night types. And then, as expected, they, fell by the wayside. Obviously, our AIGF Skill Games Charter were launched in 2018. And, we have this advisory panel, which from, experts from diverse fields. And recently, we strengthened that. In fact, last week, we had a release where we've added Justice Vikramadit Sen, Jhulan Goswami, the women cricketer, and Fatima Agarkar also on the panel, and adding to the existing, advisories who have vetted that charter. Now, are there other examples of, self-regulation in industries that have worked well? Yes. ASCII has done, ASCII does it for advertising, the IBF does it for broadcasting. And likewise, AIGF is doing it for online RNG now for the last 4 years. So our skill games charters, are basis the 4 fundamentals of legality, integrity, user rights, and good practices. Now, obviously, we, do not have both of these, all of these 4 are, fundamentally focused on player protection and responsible gaming, as you would know. However, at this juncture, we are also in the process of ensuring that, all the members, they have all adhered to the charters, but also, do the audit process, which would eventually, give them that seal, that AIGF seal, that, that essentially qualifies them to be approved, AIGF approved operators. And that's the process that we are following now. It has worked well so far. And obviously the first, from a player protection perspective, the first port of call is obviously with the operator, but we are, and then the escalation does come to us, and we are looking at that process. As of now, it is working well. Obviously, it's a work in progress, and as I said, we will be looking at the audit process right now. But for the although the industry has grown, as I said, horizontally, the self-regulation that AIGF has started is working well for all stakeholders.
Gaurav, coming to you on this, how much of an impact do you see? Actually, a very quick view on how does a valuation methodology typically work in the gaming world? In your experience, from a pre-incorporation level onwards, how do you go about raising money and your journey towards the exit? And what role does the confidence in the public weigh the legality and the sanctity of the product and the goodwill and reputation attached to it? What has been your experience?
So I'll tell you, I mean, let me start with the last thing which you put forth, the legality of it. Now, Dream 11 very recently got valued at $2.5 billion. It was raising money from SteadView or Steadfast. I'm not sure. I just get confused between the two at that valuation before COVID hit. Not sure what happened there. But let's remember Dream 11 was there, that company was there 11 years ago also. And they weren't doing anything over there. So the promoter actually went to the US, came back, and then got back into the fantasy sport until he could get a judgment from the Punjab Haryana High Court. There was no valuation. There was nobody touching it. The moment he got that judgment, the investor confidence grew several fold, and it's right in front of you. I mean, out of our own experience also in Adda 52, our valuation at which we exit, we know it was a little less than what we thought it would, because in the international markets there's a license. In India there's no license. That's the way investors look at it. In fact, one of the things we've been working on, Weber, along you and I, in fact, was a Nagaland Act. Now, that was the sole purpose of that act, was to get the regulation going so that the confidence in all stakeholders, be the investors, be the players, be everyone else, increases. And that has been the endeavor all throughout. The investors, once they realized that Adda 52 was sold to a listed company, went through the process of SEBI, went through the process of NCLT. Actually, that event, coupled with the Rummy event where they were sold to the pension fund, the Canadian pension fund, these two were landmark things. And after that, Dream 11. So it's clear for everybody to see that the moment that thing happens, it changes, both from a valuation perspective as well as the interest in investing perspective. Now, if you look at startups, when you're starting out, I can tell you on a concept, people get interested in investing, but the concept has to be defendable. It should be where there should be entry barrier. There should not be something which anybody else can do. In India, the unique part is the legality. Not everybody knows how to traverse the legality, and that is the unique part. The technology itself is good, but it comes later in India, only in India, I'm saying. The startup, when it raises money, is the moment it is, it has launched a product, it is of a certain valuation, even without doing any revenues. It is just because you have a technology, that means you are worth something. Now, because the opportunity is such, you do some projections, etc., raise money on some pre-incorporation, then post-incorporation values, and then you keep on raising money as you hit milestones. That means the second step after being a startup and you raise money would be when you go out in the market, you check out what are the integers which you can fix. That means what is your cost of acquisition of a player? What is the lifetime value of the player? What is the value at which you can retain a player? How big is the addressable market? What are your entry barriers for competition to follow suit, etc., etc., etc. And then you go about raising money in the second tranche, Series A, B, C, D, E, therefore. And Up until now, Weber, the VC world was not very interested because it was a taboo subject because of legality. But with Dream 11 and others, MPL being most recent, they've raised a lot of money from Sequoia. Winzo has raised money. There's a bunch of, we recently read about Paytm raising a lot of money. And now you're going to international domains. There's a huge interest in VCs. There's a huge interest in people from Europe, which is a very mature market, into coming into India. And they are looking to partner with Indian companies who are either startups or are bigger companies. So there's a market for everybody.
Gaurav, on one hand, it seems that it's becoming a big boys club. On the other, what would your advice be to people? Let me put a situation. You've got 100 rupees in your wallet to invest. And in the given circumstances, you've got real estate, you've got the stock market, you've got the gaming world. How should people go about doing it? Even if it's not a massive portfolio that they want to invest 40, 50 lakhs, perhaps. And that's their risk money, investable fund. Is there an opportunity for that? Or now it's only if you've got 10 crores, do you look at an investment or you don't? What are the structures possible for that?
Weber, I think, interesting question. COVID has changed everything. What was possible earlier in gaming, that has changed dramatically. There's a 5-time increase in gaming, volume, which we see in just about every game one is observing, except for fantasy, of course, because real money fantasy is not possible with no sports being done. Apart from that, when you look at cards, when you look at any other game, they are really, really expanding. Now, the big boys will always look at a platform story, or they'll look at, throwing a lot of money to get as many people as possible. They cannot do customization, which is going to be the need of the hour equally. So there will be a horizontal player and there will be a vertical player. For example, when we were doing poker, we were looking at only poker, and we were not looking at doing any other games because the poker market itself, is at that time when we started, it was 2 lakh people who played poker. Today is 50 lakh people and growing, right? So the depth of market is just 50 lakh. In Indian context, imagine what is the population and what can happen. So you want to concentrate on those games as well. So companies will take a call. Do they want to be horizontal or do they want to be vertical and get deep into the trenches? And there's enough and more for both kinds of, business opportunities. So yeah, I think that's what my view is.
And Karthi, on chess, you've got chess.com. Chess.com has 25 lakh players from what I understand and is valued at upwards of $1 billion already. You mentioned there are 70 million players in India who already play.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see yourself as the next unicorn?
So not only do we see ourselves as the next unicorn, we also see us topping chess.com just in terms of being the go-to benchmark online chess platform. I think the whole idea of chess.com, chess.com started in 1997, if I'm not mistaken. And that's its story is different, right? We're a 2020 baby. Our story is going to be completely different, right? And we're not juxtaposing ourselves to a chess.com, but our vision and who we want to attract and where we want to take the game and the cultural context to what it represents, the social context to what it represents, we are completely sort of built differently in that sense. Just now to what Gaurav was saying is something that, we agree. Somebody's asking me recently about, how far will this chess thing go, quote unquote. And I'm like, as deep as it can go, we are there. Okay. Today it's an online RNG platform. Tomorrow, like I said, it could be talent management. Third, it could be 5 different IPs. I don't know. Anything is possible in chess, and we want to be involved, if not own, everything to do in chess. I want to get into content. I want to get into resources. I want to eventually get into coaching. I want to get into not just master classes. I want to get into master experiences, right? I want to, I know that there's a platform that does something with chess scholarships, for example. I think that's an amazing initiative, right? So we are spreading ourselves deep into the chess ecosystem. So what Gaurav was talking about, the vertical, we are all the way in, okay? We're not looking at it this way or horizontally. We're going in, we're going to be carving in deeper and deeper and deeper, prescribing values as we go along. As you mentioned, to create the story for India's mass inclusive populace before we go global. which is already happening concurrently as well, by the way. So the idea is we want to really be a domain expert in chess. Once we've mastered this, once we have our plans in place, we've gone about, hit milestones, raised some more money, created those champions, created those success stories, then we may look at other opportunities within the broad gaming sphere. But for us right now, we're so focused on chess. There's so much to do. It's terribly exciting. And there's so many opportunities. It's I cannot even begin to enumerate.
Karthikeya, after this call, I think you'll have a lot of people queuing up to say, how can we invest in your venture? How can they invest in your venture?
I can't tell you.
Including
fingers
us.
crossed. It's a great place to be, Vaibhav. I won't lie to you. We have a lot of interest from not just investors within India and overseas as well. Platforms who are talking to us to host on. We want to be that go-to chess brand platform and like I said, social cultural change enabler. That's who we want to be.
So what would be the minimum ticket size? Just still early days. What would be the minimum ticket size if an individual came up and said, listen, I've got 30, 40 lakhs I want to invest, whatever be your valuation. Is that a model that is open to ventures like yours?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just the money for us right now. We also need some like-minded investors. So I'm not saying necessarily strategic, but we wouldn't take any old money. We want to get. I mean, I'm not saying no to any money. Don't get me wrong. But the idea is that we're so sure and steadfast on our plan, and we know it's a plan that is a wow plan, if I may bandy our brand in it. But yes, somebody at 30, 40, obviously we talk to anybody like that.
While it'll be a very minuscule stake though. I mean, is it worth having a 0.1% or a 0.2%? I don't know. Gaurav, Roland, Rameshi, what do you have to think about it? Is it any sense for an individual, instead of going to the stock market, Rameshi, for an individual, instead of going to the stock market, he invests 40, 50 lakhs into a gaming startup, right? He'll have maybe 0.2, 0.3% of the company at that value, right? Is it worth considering, or should one only look at the traditional formats? Rameshi? You built a $6 billion company. You'll be best placed to advise how we go about that.
From a technology company where I work for, I could not use any company. However, if you're asking me personally and leave a question on looking
You're not audible.
Sir, you're not audible.
Yeah, from a technology company point of view where I work for, I don't think I have any comment on this.
Roland?
At the end of the day, we are tools and we do not depend on the content. We don't create content. Like,
Can I react to that?
Certainly, after Ramesh. I think Ramesh is playing it very safe on this one.
Personally, when Karthik was talking, I got his app downloaded, and that app clearly shows, would I invest or would someone invest in the company? The key is on the retention of the user. So if you have a user experience of playing a chess or a Sudoku or any puzzle game or a poker or a rummy game, the key aspect is how did you get your core game loop integrated into the social nuances? And if there is that call factor or the factor of why people come back and play very clear, even for a small percent of a company, it's better to invest where you would have exponential growth rather than in a linear stock market. It depends on the user stickiness factor or the engagement factor, which is determined in the core game loop of how user starts the game and how user goes off the game. Whether winning or losing doesn't matter, but it's experience. For example, if I go to a casino in Las Vegas or in Macau or in Goa, the logic, the cognization of human thing of going to a casino is to say that I'm going for an experience, and most of the times you lose, okay? Very less times you win, but you go for that experience saying that I'm going for that light, that wow factor, that high which I really need, and it's a way to de-stress, way to kill time, and as long as that user behavior is in there in the core game loop, I would advise companies. I would advise to invest in companies which have the mechanism.
Gaurav, you had something to say on this topic.
What I was saying was when we did Ada 52, we raised all of, under $500,000. I know it was 10 years back, but we exited at about like 220 crores, right? And the point is, 10 years back and today, things have changed. I don't dispute that. But making a startup in gaming, you can do it with very less cost in comparison to any other businesses per se. Because unlike, e-commerce sites, etc., where you have to purchase and then sell, there is no stock, there's no inventory, there is no working capital per se. If you have an RMG and if you're good and if you can retain your players, you will start earning money from literally, day one. And therefore the cost, keeps on rotating back into that. You replow the profit back into that and you can keep on growing, and also raise money simultaneously. So
Exactly.
40, 50
As
lakhs.
Gaurav was saying, you don't need money. If your core loop is right, you don't need money.
Wow. In fact, this is one of the few EBITDA positive businesses right from day one if played right, from what I understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, it is not like every gaming company you're going to invest in, you're going to be able to get a success out of. You're going to fail in some, you're going to make some, and that's a different story altogether. But if, you look at the stock market as well right now, you invest only in stocks, ideally, which you know about, you research. And same goes for gaming. So I'll strongly advise that anybody who's looking at any investment in gaming, they should know about it thoroughly. Just don't bet upon, just putting money because it's gaming, it's very good, etc. It's a good industry, I'll put the money. No. Please look at who the, promoters are. Please look at what is the defensibility. Please look at, what is the team, what is the vision, etc., before you invest anything over there. I'm not in favor of investing in real estate, by the way, especially in today's times. I think, the interest rate is more than what you pay or get as rentals. The yield is lesser than what you do. So it does not make sense. And it's an illiquid asset.
So
Ronald,
can we take some queries from the attendees?
Yes, yes, Dr. Singh.
Right now?
Of course, sorry. We could have continued forever on this. Please, happy to take questions.
Yeah, so there's one question I want to ask to our senior advocate from Supreme Court of India, Ms. Priya Himwarani. Man, these laws concerning this online gaming, normally they falls under the state legislative. And there are few states in India that are entitled to formulate laws for such activities within their respective states. For example, we have also the IT 2000 Act, which prohibits publication of information that can corrupt people, including online gaming. So there is a lot of, ambiguity as far as Indian laws are concerned in terms of, online gaming. So can there be some, do you foresee some sort of uniformity in these, laws in times to come?
Well, Dr. Sir, we have been, there has been a move from lawyers, from gaming players asking for a central legislation, which is not yet there. But, we, I think from PhD would need to put a white paper on this to place before the parliament to bring about a kind of a common law central legislation. Different states, as has been mentioned, Nagaland is the first, and there are some other states who have actually brought out laws under the state for some of these gaming programs. I think we really need to, if the government is actually serious and seeing the kind of investment which is coming into these kind of games, to bring in more investments into India and to these players, the government will have to seriously look into bringing about, see, we do have Supreme Court decisions, as was mentioned by Vaibhav, but it's not up to the Supreme Court to kind of set the law. It's up to the Parliament to set the law. And I think we need to work on that now. This is just the right time to push from all corners. And I think PhD itself will probably take the lead in this.
Ma'am, if I may add to what you were just saying.
Yes.
Interestingly, almost every state in India has created an exemption within the statute to say that the games of skill are exempted. Yes. What is the ramification of that, if you could explain to the audience? How do you get prosecuted then?
Well, that's the thing. If we look at the criminal laws and if we look at what the states have come about, it's completely a gray area. They themselves are not educated or aware of what the ramifications are. I think it's straitjacket. What they say is, one aspect is, if you're betting, if you're putting in money, it's an offense. If you're just playing for fun, you can go ahead. But that's what they understand, and I think that's where education, legal awareness, social awareness, gaming awareness is required, and that's what I think experts like all of you who are on the panel today will play a very important role. And I think we should all get together and put together something really meaningful for the government to look into.
No, really look forward to that. In fact, on the legalities, if we have enough time, there were a few questions I'd love to have your opinion on.
As an example, another session.
Another session. Very well.
I just want to, make one point over here. So when we were looking at foreign investment into India, FDI into betting was not, is a little controversial. So the first thought which came to my mind was that we bet on stocks also, on the stock market. Is that illegal? So, that basic understanding of what we want to do from a legal perspective, it's extremely important. That you understand that betting in itself is not illegal. How you do and for what purpose and intent, that is the important thing.
Because you also have the IP infringement, you have the cybersecurity issues, you have the criminal law issues. So I think we all this has to be looked into it totally. It's not that simple, but at the same time, it's not impossible.
Absolutely. Would we like to? Are there other questions we'd like to take?
So, in fact, if you allow me, there is a small question I want to ask all the domain experts. That there are a lot of stereotypes that surrounds the players and the industry. For example, like obsession for the game, sitting for long hours in front of screens, and probably there are some activists that are coming out with the children. They come out with some antisocial behavior if they are too much indulged in all these online gaming aspects. So how to surmount these challenges? Very important, because from parent point of perspective, I think we need to have a proper answer for this also.
Ronald, would you like to take that up?
Yeah. So Dr. Singh, actually, since we are aided with ample technology, one of the most of the operators in the developed markets, also the operators in India also, are use various checks and balances to ensure that I mentioned earlier, as part of our self-regulation charters, we have this thing called focused on self-regulation and player protection. Now, all of these, it could mean time spent on the game itself. It could mean the amount of money one is spending. So technology really enables the platform as well as the gamer to put in place checks and balances so that there is no overuse, no overexposure, and the aspect of addiction and other things can be looked at and curbed, and also the issue of excessive spending on a platform, etc. So technology can really take care of this if you come under the ambit of self-regulation and probably going forward proper central regulation.
Okay, great. Thanks. So there will be a lot of questions in Q&A. If you can open this box and
certainly
pick up some of the relevant questions.
Could you throw some, this is from Rishabh Ahuja to all panelists, could you throw some light on the regulations around RMG in India? How do you see them evolving in the near future? Ma'am, would you like to take that on, or would?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
The question was, could you throw some light on the regulations around RMG in India? How do you see them evolve in the near future?
So, I think you are best in a position to answer this with what you're taking on every day. So why don't you answer?
So currently, Rishabh, the regulations for RMG, again, must understand everything is either legislative, executive, or judicial. Because there is sanctity to a number of games basis on the judicial precedents. And in the legislative domain, you have the exemptions under almost every act apart from 3 specific acts in India. So every state apart from 3 has said that games of skill are exempted from the purview of gambling. Therefore, it is taken as the legalities of that are safe. Now, from executive come the regulations per se. So for instance, in Delhi, you had the offline poker event license that was given, and there were regulations which were put into place for that. Or you have regulations in terms of the Nagaland Games of Skill Act, which specifically provide for do's and don'ts which are possible. And they've gone on a constitutional basis to say that if something is legal in my state and not banned in another, in that case, it can go all across the country, but any state that bans it would not be, that game cannot be offered there. There are financial, legal, regulatory audits which happen in that. You've got a third front of regulations in terms of what the self-determination regulations are, which is what AIGF is focusing on. And you've got a fourth set of regulations currently, which are what companies themselves are doing, which may not be a part of any organization per se. So I know for a fact, a client of ours, we dealt with them, brought about self-regulation for them. They said anybody who loses more than 2% of their monthly salary would be blocked off from coming back. Obviously, 18 as an age for legal play is very clear. KYC norms are very, very clear. No one can mess around with those because that could lead to PMLA. So once you get into it, yes, regulations can be tighter. It can be more universal. But currently, we are actually moving in the right direction, and regulations are there enough to provide a safeguard to the players, to the company, as well as to the regulators involved in that. There is a comment, hi Gaurav, we are the world's first online stock market based gaming platform. I'll just say, by the way, you must look at your legalities in terms of that, because the SEBI has very clearly come down on that. This gentleman had started this in Bombay, and he got a notice from SEBI to say, because all state legislations actually deal with the stock market not being an exemption, because it's a specific category. So you may just want to look at your legalities. As a player, where shall I contact for career opportunity? Would one of you like to take that one up?
I think Ramesh using a lot of things from Unity Technologies for skin enhancement. We have done many workshops last year with Unity on the same subject. Over to Ramesh.
Yeah, as a career, there are two aspects of it. Second has twofold.
Ramesh, you are not audible. Please be loud.
Okay, as a career, there are two aspects of the career. One is a career in game development, which is where we and PhD Chambers have done those systems. A career as a gamer is still not fully developed in countries like India. If you go to the West, there are online gaming tournaments, like a football player, like any physical game player. The career as a player is still yet to be in the evolving phase. Whereas for developing games, definitely yes. We have done several forums. You can reach out to me, and I can personally help to get onto that career of creating games.
Thank you. Then there is another question. What is the best way to raise VC funding for RMG companies? Gaurav, would you like to take that one on?
Yeah, I think, VCs have become very, very active in the space in India. All small VCs, big VCs, even family offices. I think like any other startup, you need to have a business plan which is solid. You'll need to make an information memorandum. You'll need to have a teaser. You need to be sure of, what are your ins and outs. You need to be sure of the nuts and bolts of the business, entry barriers. And like in any other startup, either you go directly writing into these VCs, or you get in touch with investment bankers like myself, who can help you reach out to these VCs or help you in structuring these transactions. So both are possible. Even the big four like EY, Deloitte, all of them also are looking at this spectrum now as advisors. So it is no longer so difficult to reach out to investors nowadays.
There is a question from Aman Datta, and Sharik, if you could look into this. Can gaming companies survive on advertising revenue alone?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Generally, companies who go into real money gaming businesses do not allow advertising because the revenue is being made from the players. However, there have been some instances where some companies get into a blended mode, or else there could be a casual game where they do allow advertising. However, these models don't seem to be a good revenue maker unless and until you hit the top line of becoming a game like Angry Birds or bigger games like PUBG, for example. So unless and until you create a AAA category game, and then you have a lot of good interested audience to play that game, making a revenue out of advertising through that game is really difficult. And that's why RMG is a better approach.
We have
Doctor-
Mr. Saurabh Sanyal, our Secretary General. He wants to ask, I think, one question. Yeah.
Sure.
Over to Mr. Sanyal. You are not audible, sir. Please unmute.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Jitendra. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Excellent webinar going on, but I have a small doubt and something to ask on this gaming. Most of us know that the game of Chaucer, which was in the erstwhile India, during the Mahabharata times, this how it ended with the Pandavas and with Prince Yudhishthir. So what we do not know is what kind of game Chaucer would amount to in modern India. It was a game of dice, but it was also a game of strategy and skill, both. So millions could be lost and millions could be gained. I mean, that was a kind of, it was also a strategical game where and in today's context, if you see it, it can be a very good game for a person who's actually going to start a company or going to, put in all his wealth, all his money into a startup and in a bootstrapped way and start his business. So is this game that involves betting or gambling legal? Is it legal in India?
So,
Because
sir,
all legal experts. Number one.
okay.
Number two is through the internet into the mix. Is online gaming, betting, or lottery? All this will be legal in India. What do you feel, or what do you think?
Ms. Hingorani, would you like
you
to?
answer him.
Okay. So coming to the first one, Chaucer. From what I understand of the game, it is quite similar to Ludo, but a lot deeper in terms of strategy. But if we were to draw a parallel with modern times, it's Ludo that you would draw it to. We must understand 2-3 fundamental aspects of it, sir. If you're going to be investing deep money into it, it's a very risky one, according to me. Reason for that is that the perception of it is going to push you back very, very badly. Ma'am, Ms. Hingorani would also dive in that, if I'm the prosecutor in court and I will just start by saying, look what happened in Mahabharata, and you've got the judges against you already. There's no scientific formula to prove that it is totally legal, and therefore you're starting from the background. If you're the defense attorney in that case, however, my reaction that is going to be, and I heard this, I'm borrowing it, but I love this line, that in fact, if it was regulated at that point of time, then Yudhishthir could not have bet his wife. It would not have been allowed.
Well,
right?
this was said by Sarika
Yes.
Patel. Yeah.
That's right. I famously quoted, but I do give due credit. I think it's one of the...
there would be no Gita Gyan,
She was from the UK Gambling Commission.
Correct. So now in terms of legalities, sir, how is it going to be tested? One is that if we are able to have that game included within the schedule of games declared as a game of skill, then yes, you have something going forward to say, look, I'm legit, at least the mens rea goes out of the picture. And your odds become a lot better. So that is one possibility in the current legal framework that can be done. The second one is if you get a judicial precedent to say that it is possible, and I can tell you there is no judicial precedent as of today. So it's a fight on. The third is that you launch yourself and you will have a pushback. And then are you willing to take the risk? So as Gaurav did with poker back in 2010, there was very little to justify. And we would go there and say, look, there are 10 world champions in poker. How can it be a game of chance? So you're arguing on logic. So when we go with Chaucer, we'll have to really break down the rules. And there are, internally, we have this set of guidelines to say what is a game of skill, what is chance, etc. We get these reports done, get that analysis done, and then look for it. Because then you're on a much safer foundation to take it forward. Ludo, as we know, has got 500 million users, but Ludo, when you put on the money wrap on it, is going to become very dangerous because a lot of people could lose a lot of money. And that brings me actually to another sequitur question, sir. Just taking a lead from what you had said, that you could lose millions of rupees, right? Legally speaking, is there a difference? And Ms. Hingorani, I'd like you to come in on this from a constitutional perspective. If something is legal, say the stock market, I could lose millions or I could make millions. Does that change the legality?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. But once you have your regulations in place and you have your safeguards in place, and it is within the framework, you may lose millions. But if it is within the regulations and if it's within the safeguards, well, it's legal.
It's legal.
So in
It's
court,
legal
I
indeed.
once heard the learned judge say that just because you're not, putting money to an illegal act does not make it legal.
Legal. True.
In fact, in the Supreme Court, ma'am, the judge said, and he's on a strict interpretation, by the way, of the gaming statutes in India,
Yeah.
whether you wager for money or not is irrelevant. Any form of wagering, if it's in a game of chance, is illegal. So great concept. So it's worth a deep dive study and worth someone taking it up post that. Otherwise, it'll be slightly risky, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But like you said that most of the time when online gaming was not there, the lotteries were played by the governments. So government has a regulation in place. It was there. Physical game was being allowed of gambling across the country.
So, sir,
lotteries are the famous lotteries.
Yes. So lotteries
People have become millionaires.
So lottery
After
per
investing.
se is on a separate footing constitutionally as compared to casino and sport. Just one fundamental difference. Now, when we look at lotteries, actually there is betting and gambling is a state subject. Entry 34 lists 2. Lotteries is a central subject. So what was done was the center came out with the main mother act, as they call it. And it left it open to every state to decide then whether it was going to legalize lottery within that state or not. And therefore 13 states today currently have legalized lotteries within their states. The balance states have not legalized it. So you cannot get a Sikkim lottery in Delhi, but you can get a Sikkim lottery in Kerala because both of them are reciprocating states. So that is the thing about lottery. When it comes to other forms of betting and gambling, as you rightly said, offline it was being allowed. A lot of states allowed it. So Goa is your prime example. They have their casinos.
Yeah.
But Goa is the only one. Now Sikkim, right? It has been left entirely to the wisdom of the state to decide whether they're going to allow gambling, games of chance within that state or not. And games of skill go on to a third vertical altogether. Because there, as we've been talking about, there's a different jurisprudence that's evolved around it, which makes it the safest bet over there.
Thank you. In fact,
Thank you.
already we have overshot the time. Thank you, Vaibhav, for moderating the session.
Thank you.
Finally, I request Ms. Priyanka Rani, our co-chairperson of Sports and Youth Affairs Committee, to kindly give the concluding remarks and please propose, ma'am, also the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jitendra Singh. It's been a fascinating session. I must say, it's been a learning session. It's been a fascinating session to hear the views in something which is so current and so necessary. And particularly ever since this COVID-19, where people have been locked in their houses, how they have utilized their time into going on online and into these games. As you all know, the gaming industry is undergoing dramatic changes, and the industry transitions from being limited to friends and family activities, a thriving online activity. Participation and engagement in gaming is becoming widely recognized and pursued. Growth in the country's gaming industry is being fueled by enhanced connectivity, changing needs in social interaction, and a growing youth population base. The universal appeal and the social nature of the gaming industry offers a multitude of opportunities for direct monetization, user engagement, and brand promotions. For the purpose of regulatory monetary offerings in this gaming industry, Indian laws differentiate between games of skill and games of chance, as has been mentioned earlier as well. There is a strict prohibition on participation and offer of money in games of chance. However, games of skills are treated differently in that they are comparable to any other entertainment industry or activity. The differential treatment which is accorded to games of skill and games of chance, as the former being permitted and the latter being prohibited, has been historic feature of our Indian legal system. Entertainment options across the online media platform, the online gaming industry represents a significant avenue for growth. A clear regulatory regime, which we discuss and which we all feel, does not disrupt innovation and growth, but will allow Indian operators to access and ride this tide, generating significant revenue and employment opportunities in this industry. We have discussed the technical part of it, the sport part of it. We've heard from Mr. Roland Randers, Mr. Rao, Mr. Ramesh, Gaurav and Vaibhav, Mr. Khan. And I think it's so important that what we have discussed today I need to be formalized into some kind of a concept paper or a white paper, as I mentioned, to put it forward to the government to see that fair play, to see that regulations within the country are universal and all aspects of law are covered in this. I think the industry is absolutely ready to invest, and has been mentioned by Mr. Rao. He's had offers, and we know of so many members of our chamber, of our PhD chamber, who would be willing to or who would be happy to look into this as an industry, as an investment purpose. And I think we should have, once the lockdown is over, have another in-depth, intensive session in the chamber, physically across the table, and invite people who would be more interested in looking and taking it forward. By having said that, I would like to thank each one of you for being here with us, giving your valuable time, and encouraging, I think, when young entrepreneurs and sportsperson alike to be part of this. Thank you very much. See you again. Be safe, be healthy. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Eid Mubarak to each one of you, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you, Priyaji. Thank you.
I must thank Mr. Multani for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Multani. I think he's left. Saurabh ji, Aditya and Dr. Jitendra Singh, who have put this program together. Thank you very much. It's been very, very interesting. Thank you, Aditya, and thank you, Dr. Jitendra Singh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.